my absolute pleasure to get to introduce our next speakers and the wonderful city they represent. The Bothell Chamber rebranded to Bothell Kenmore Chamber, and it is our honor and pleasure to represent these cities and its business community. But before I bring Mayor David Baker and City Manager Rob Karlinsey up to speak, let's acknowledge, at least in some of the ways, that Kenmore has been doing hard things through relentless incrementalism, putting them on their upward trajectory of becoming, and always making sure to ask, where's the fun? Some examples include the bridge over the slough, the 522 project, the beautification efforts of the cement plant and electrical boxes, walkways and waterways, and the opening of the community space at the hangar. So for the love of Kenmore, please welcome Mayor David Baker.
I want to start by thanking the Chamber and the sponsors for making today's event possible. I would also like to recognize the Kenmore City Council members that are here with us today. Milton Curtis, Deborah Shrebnick, Melanie O'Kane, Karina File, and Joe Marshall. I'd also like to recognize King County Council member Rod Dembowski and our state delegation, Senator David Frocht, Representative Jerry Paulette, and Representative Javier Valdez. I also want to recognize our fabulous staff that is here attending today. We are so lucky to have them with us. We are all consumed by this pandemic. It's causing so much pain and suffering throughout the world. With businesses being closed and people out of work, we will see more homelessness and hunger as we emerge from this stay-at-home order. We will lose many of our small businesses. As a former small business owner, I know what it is like to wonder, how are you going to pay the bills, or how are you going to make payroll next month? To go over 2 months with no income and rent and insurance and other expenses going out, I just can't imagine how difficult it is with nothing to come in. It takes a special person to own and maintain a small business, and our thoughts are with you during this crisis. I do not think we fully understand the depth of problems we will face. Over 50% of the population in the U.S. does not even have $400 in the bank. The needs of our communities are overwhelming. Right now, food banks are inundated by requests from the communities they serve. Woodinville and Kenmore are helping East West Food Harvest, or Food Rescue, to deliver over 300 tons of food to needy people, primarily in King and Snohomish counties. Because restaurants are closed, the demand for produce is down, and thousands of pounds and tons of produce is sitting in warehouses unsold. It all started when Bothell resident and small business owner George Ahern posted on Facebook asking if anyone had a truck and would drive to Eastern Washington to pick up a few pounds of potatoes. Nancy Balin of Redmond answered the question and said she knew some people that would help. From that post, they formed East West Food Rescue. George's connections with farmers in Eastern Washington led to donations of crops that would have had to have been plowed under. Volunteers were recruited to drive to Eastern Washington to fill their pickup trucks and trailers with 50-pound bags of onions. Companies and governments volunteered their time and equipment. Cedar Grove, King County, Woodinville, and Kenmore, among others, have volunteered dump trucks to drive weekly to Eastern Washington and bring back thousands of pounds of potatoes and apples. More volunteers were recruited to package crops in 30-pound bags for distribution. Councilmember Dembowski and Mayor Cook and I have delivered hundreds of pounds of onions and potatoes to our own North Shore Senior Center that help feed the seniors in our communities. And there's lots of them, let me tell you. We really cannot lose sight of the fact that we are all in this together. Because businesses are closed, all cities are losing sales tax revenue. And Kenmore is losing revenue, and we are closely watching our budget. We have had to cut over $1 million from this year's budget, and we don't have any plans to lay off anybody or let anybody go. And our finance director, Joanne Gregory, and Rob are watching things very closely. Kenmore is now in a holding pattern until we have more data. I'm sure Rob will have a lot more to say about this, and I don't want to steal any of his thunder. I want to thank Councilmember Dembowski for sending $37,000 of CARES Act funding from the county to help Kenmore businesses. And also thank Rob for helping to fund Rhododendron State Park or Rhododendron Park Boathouse, and for the many other things he does for the city he represents and the people in our region. He really works hard. He is clear. I also would like to thank our city employees for being on the front lines and helping keep city services running. I also want to thank Senator Frocht for funding many capital projects in Kenmore, including the Juanita Drive Bike Lanes and Sidewalks Project, Twin Springs State Park, and really so much more. Representative Valdez for funding the West SAMMAMISH Bridge, and Representative Jerry Paulette for chairing the House Local Government Committee and for running defense and offense for the cities. He does so much for us. You would think he was a former elected official. Thank you all for being here and for your support. Be well. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our fearless city manager, the one and only Rob Karlinsey. Rob?
Somebody unmute Rob.
Oh, man, I do that all the time. Thank you, Mayor Baker. I was asking, can everybody hear me? So, it's a joy and privilege to work with Mayor Baker. He's been a phenomenal mayor, and you can see how excited he is about our city and how thrilled he is to represent it. It's just been so fun to see him help lead the effort to go get food across the mountains. So it's just been really great to see his leadership through all this, and the city council as a whole has been so supportive and shown great leadership and stability through all this. So you might all be asking, is Rob wearing a full suit and tie, or could he be wearing his fuzzy pajama pants and bunny slippers? Have you been wondering that? Well, I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to leave you in suspense.
Rob, I'm glad you're leaving us in suspense. Can I ask you to speak up a little bit? You're coming across a little bit softly for the recording.
Sure. All right. Is this a little better?
Better, yes. Thank you.
I do hear some static in the background. People may want to mute if they're not already muted. But okay. Well, let's go ahead and dive into my presentation. We have tons to cover, as always, and I'm going to share my screen. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to cover everything we do. It's impossible. I'm not even going to be able to cover all the major things we do as a city. But I'm going to try to hit on the high point as best we can. And I definitely want to echo what Andrea said earlier, all the positivity that's going on in our city and in our community, and all the great acts of kindness. And also what she said about the senseless murder of George Floyd. And Julian Lowe also touched on that as well. I'll be talking about that a little bit later in my presentation. We're all deeply concerned about that, and we've been watching it closely. And been in discussions with my chief of police over the last few days. So we come into this PowerPoint presentation in the state of the city, definitely more sober and concerned than normal years. The limitations of this video are going to make it difficult for that interaction that we usually enjoy with the state of the city. But I'll do my best. And like I said, I have lots to cover. But I first want to start off to talk to you about my coworkers or my bosses, City Council. I report to this 7-member body, and we have 2 new city council members. Melanie O'Kane and Karina File were elected just last fall and are new to the council this year, and they are pictured on the right. Also, Mayor David Baker and Milton Curtis, they also ran for re-election, and they were unopposed, and so they were elected as well. So, like I said, they have a great vision for the city. They are in it for this town, which I love, and it's just a privilege for me to work for and conviction for bettering our city. So I'm grateful for them. We have 2 new faces on the city's leadership team since the last State of the City. We have our new Chief of Police, Brandon Moen. Chief Horvath was promoted to captain in the King County Sheriff's Department. And so we did a competitive recruitment and we selected Chief Moen as our new Chief of Police. We are pleased to have him come from Shoreline, where he did a lot of really cool things there. And also Don Rayton is our new city attorney. And again, we did a competitive recruitment on that. Rod Kasaguma, after many, many years as Kenmore City attorney, retired last year. And we're just so fortunate to have Dawn. She has a deep, deep resume in municipal law, and she's a joy to work with. Every year, our city council sets goals. And here are the top 5 goals that they set last January. And a lot of them look familiar to you, or hopefully they do. The number 1 goal, and this has been the number 1 goal since 2014, is Target Zero, or ped bike safety goals. Affordable housing, which is a very important issue right now. Climate action plan, which is a new goal. Walkways and waterways, and our financial sustainability plan. And you've heard me talk about our financial sustainability plan over the years, how we've been adopting balanced budgets, but our cost of doing business has been growing faster than the revenues that we've been taking in. And that's something we're going to have to address. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. And do we have a new city council goal that we weren't counting on? We might. I don't know if you want to call it a council goal, but this happened to us. And this has really taken over, the pandemic has really taken over a lot of our city operations and has become the most important thing lately over the last 3 months. And it's something that we've had to deal with and put a lot of time and resources on that. But I'd actually like to talk about the pre-pandemic goals that the council set, because I still think it's important to talk about those. And the first one is Target Zero, or ped bike safety. And there were some recent articles about pedestrian and bicycle deaths. And here's a couple of headlines. Pedestrian deaths reached 30-year high in 2019. And 2018 was the deadliest year for cyclists in 30 years. Those are some pretty disturbing numbers. And we're seeing those trends even well. But what's happening in Kenmore? This is a graph that shows pedestrian and bicycle serious injuries and fatalities in Kenmore. So we're actually seeing that trend go down. I have to mention, though, that these are low numbers to begin with. We in 2014, which was a terrible year for pedestrians and cyclists, we had 3 deaths in 2014. But since then, it's been on a decline. And look at here, I'm so happy to see this number, the zeros in 2018 and 2019. So let me tell you a little story. Last year, I had the privilege of serving on a jury. I was called to jury duty, and I was selected to be on a jury for a car accident case. And it went to court, went to trial. And as a member of the jury, I had to figure out who owed what money to who. And in the end, we ended up awarding some money for the plaintiff. But after the trial, the judge came into the jury room to chat with us and to answer some questions that we may have. And one of the jurors asked, "What percentage of your trials are car accidents?" And she said, 90+%. 90+% of her trials have to do with car accidents. So think about that. And remember, we as taxpayers, we subsidize court costs and judges and bailiffs and all the staff that go with that and all those costs. So think about what goes into, and all the people that end up serving and responding during a car accident. You have the tow truck, you have the auto repair company, you have the insurance adjuster, you have the healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, chiropractors, acupuncturists, etc. Of course, you have attorneys. And then you have the whole court system. And all those people play an important role, and they all have important and valuable jobs to do. But here's what I love about working in local government. We in local government get to help stop the accident from happening in the first place. How cool is that? And I believe that our efforts have been reducing pedestrian and bicycle serious injuries and fatalities. Can I prove that? Can I show that these numbers are a direct result of our efforts? No, but there is a corresponding tie to our efforts in these reductions. So that's one of the joys of working in local government, is we get to solve, or at least help solve, problems at their core. Let me talk a little bit now about financial sustainability. Like I said, our cost of doing business is going up faster than our revenues. And we have been able to adopt balanced budgets, but that was before the pandemic. So let's talk about the pre-pandemic situation. This is a graph that shows our surplus or our deficit for the general fund, which is our biggest fund and covers most of our operations. You can see that in the A, that means actual, 2017 A, and 18A means actual. You can see that we actually did run surpluses in 2017 and 18. This 2019 deficit looks bad, but it was actually intentional and strategic. So we took some of the surplus from the prior years, and we put about $600,000 into a separate savings account, and so that shows as an expenditure out of this fund. And we also put about $1 million into pavement preservation. So for 2020 and 2021, we're showing us just barely balancing the budget. But then starting in 2022, our financial lines cross. And then that gap gets bigger and bigger with each year. There's different reasons for that. One is, you've heard me talk about the property tax limitation. The state property tax revenue growth, total citywide revenue growth, can only grow by 1% a year, plus new construction. So that's a limiting factor on our budget. And we've also seen utility taxes actually decline. Landline phones, cell phones, those are the main culprit for the decline in our utility taxes. But meanwhile, our expenditures, just the status quo cost of doing business, continues to march upward every year. So what have we been trying to do about it? Well, we formed a task force. The city council and I worked together to form a task force of Kenmore residents, and here's a picture of them. And they started just earlier this year. I think they started in January, and they rolled up their sleeves and were doing great work learning about the city's budget and how it works. And they were just about to dive into solutions and recommendations. And guess what happened? Yep, the virus happened. And we tried to keep them going, but we quickly realized that it wasn't a good time to continue this conversation. And not that the public probably was going to even be able to pay attention to this conversation. So the Financial Sustainability Plan Task Force is on hold. We hope to bring them back at a future date, maybe in the fall. We'll just have to see when is the best time. But in the meantime, we are bracing for bigger drops in our revenues. And I can tell you that instead of our financial lines crossing in 2022, because of the pandemic, they're crossing now. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But before I do, let's hear from 3 of our local business owners. I've asked Todd Banks of Kenmore Air to share with us what his business has been going through. Also, Elisabeth Spring, Seaplane Bar, and Brad Mott of Kenmore Smiles Family Dentistry. So, Todd, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me on, and it's good to see everybody, even though it's on the screen. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's been a challenging time, but as the mayor said, that crisis brings the best in people, and we've had a loyal crew here, but it's been a rocky road. So March 1st, we had 130 people on our payroll, and as the virus started hitting and we see the drop off of our business, we went through kind of 3 rounds of dropping our employment levels, where we bottomed out at 14 people, and we were able to pivot our business. Fortunately, the airline represents about 2/3 of our business, but we also have a service and parts department, and so we were able to pivot and look for customer work. So we had airplanes come in from Alaska, one from Kansas, different places to try to do customer work. So we've scaled up. Today we're about 28 employees, and so we've got a little bit of business coming, but we really aren't doing any material flying. We are flying 1 flight a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and that's for essential workers only, healthcare workers for the San Juan Islands, to support them in the pandemic effort. So with the challenges of just dealing with the business, then we've also got the all the rules with the PPP and helping our people with the unemployment programs, and then the fraud with the unemployment programs. Several of our people we're trying to help them deal with that. So there's new challenges every day. We are also, as we step back up from 14 to 28, we're having to implement our biosecurity plan, both internally in the business and then also for the few passengers that we are continuing to fly. So there's just a whole different world of challenges out there, but our crew continues to respond to them, and people still have a good attitude about it, and we're looking for the day to get back to work. In addition to all of that, there's still just the routine challenges of our business. Lake Union continues to be kind of a hot spot with some of the residents down there, but we continue to deal with that. The 2 big things that we're waiting to open up is the Canadian border. We do more than 60% of our business, the flying business, into Canada, and the Canadians, there's pretty strong public sentiment to try to keep the Canadian border closed. So we watch that very closely. And then we're also following the San Juans, and there does look like there's some positive movement in the San Juans as they move from phase 2 into a modified phase 2 and potentially phase 3. So we're looking at trying to do some flying in July and August in the San Juans. We're continuing to modify our forecast to know how the year is going to look, but this is really turning into a year-long challenge for us as we try to navigate through next March and April, and I think we will. It's going to be painful, and it's just hard working with our employees, because we have so many long-time loyal employees, and people want to come back to work, and we're trying to get them back to work. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's kind of what it is from our seat here. And it's a challenging time for lots of business and a challenging time for our nation. And we're continuing to be positive about it and get through all this.
Thanks so much, Todd. I really appreciate it. You're one of our major employers, and definitely appreciate hearing from you.
Yeah.
And Elisabeth, if you want to go next.
And Elisabeth, as you get started, this is Eric Murray again from Cascadia. We, behind the scenes, all the co-hosts, we're trying to manage some folks and their microphones. It doesn't appear that our controls are allowing us to mute everyone that we need to. And so Senator Frocht and Katie Cartwright, you both seem to be coming in and out with your microphones, and we can't seem to control that. So if you would just look at your own systems and remember to mute those, that would be great. Thanks for allowing me to interrupt, and I'll turn it back to you, Elisabeth.
Sure, of course. Thank you. So again, I'm Elisabeth Spring. I'm one of the partners in Seaplane Kitchen and Bar here in Kenmore. We also have restaurants in Bothell, Capitol Hill, Ballard, Tacoma, and Leavenworth. And we've been closed since mid-March, and Seaplane is finally reopening tomorrow for limited takeout. Staff at all of our restaurants were laid off, and we are slowly bringing them back. We'll have about 7 or 8 staff members tomorrow at Seaplane. We are projecting that we will be operating at about 25% of our previous capacity based on the number of guests. On a busy Friday evening, we typically would serve between 250 to 300 people. And now we're just hoping that we can get about 60 takeout orders in one night. We really need the community's support to help sustain our business. Tomorrow, we're rolling out a menu that will have pizzas, salad, veggies, family meals, along with wine, cocktails, and beer. And then we'll continue to expand that menu as we are able to. We are strongly encouraging our guests to order at least a day in advance, as it helps us tremendously. If we have questions, we can call you. The kitchen can prep more efficiently, and we can streamline our process to ensure everything is ready when you arrive. And then in the near future, we'll be offering delivery that will be done by us, not a third-party delivery service. We are doing delivery ourselves to cut back on additional operating costs, and so we can ensure proper delivery of our food. And we're also partnering with Fine Dine Frontlines to provide meals to frontline workers starting next week. So we'll be cooking about 300 meals a week that this organization will be delivering to hospitals in our region. We closed in March for a few reasons. We were really unsure what the landscape would look like and wanted to keep our employees and guests safe. We have a really large operation, and making a quick pivot to an entirely new business model just wasn't making sense for us. And we wanted to take the time to evaluate the marketplace and make smart decisions that were in the best interest of our staff and our guests, and roll out a menu that would serve the community well. And now we're grappling with an industry that is irrevocably changed, and we're working to figure out what that's going to look like pretty much every day, because we're not sure how this is going to affect restaurants long term. And we're trying to maintain a really safe environment for everyone, not just our employees, but anyone who is picking up an order. We don't really know what to expect, but we're hopeful that we'll see a lot of you tomorrow and picking up orders for takeout. That's kind of it. Oh, I can't hear you, Rob.
Really appreciate you sharing that with us. Thank you. And Dr. Mott, can you go next?
I can. I don't think there's any other options here. So, can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Elisabeth, first put me down for some fried chicken tomorrow night. Okay. But I'd like to say thanks first to Rob, to the city, to Mayor Baker, to the chamber for all your support through all this. I don't know how involved with them everybody else has been, but been very helpful to me, the chamber's information that they've been putting on. The website has been very beneficial to everybody that's there. So we definitely appreciate it as small businesses, knowing that you have our backs. As I said, I'm Brad Mott. I own Kenmore Smiles Family Dentistry. My wife, Laura Stewart, owns Kenmore Pediatric Dentistry, and we have a new building right across from City Hall. So what a time to build out right now. But I also apologize for any interruptions. I am at the office seeing patients today. So for dentistry statewide was closed down mid-March, about March 18th, I think, and it was closed down for a set 2 months. That was to slow the spread of COVID and to protect the supply of PPE for the medical system. Laura and I couldn't imagine being closed for 2 weeks, let alone 2 months at this time, so we had to try to take some drastic action, relatively speaking, but similar to all other businesses. So we furloughed our 10 employees that we have, but the nice thing with furloughing our employees is A, they all wanted to come back, we knew that, and B, with the enhanced unemployment benefits, they were actually taken care of pretty well. So it helped Laura and I sleep better at night knowing that they were going to be taken care of, and it took one concern off of our plate. Our bank has worked with us very well as far as deferring payments, because we do have substantial debt at this time, and that was very much appreciated as well. And then we started down the rabbit hole of applying for small business relief through the government, mainly the PPP that Todd was speaking of, and emergency disaster loans were also an option for us. So we applied for those. It was a very roller coaster ride of emotion going through that, because one day you thought you were going to be fine, the next day you thought you were going out of business, and it was just a hard thing to deal with for us. But mainly because there were 3 possible outcomes. The first is that we get the PPP, it ends up being forgiven, life is good, at least in the intermediate term, we have the cash flow that we need, it gives us some relief and doesn't build more debt. The other possibility, and the second possibility, would be that we would get the PPP, that we would not get it, we would not get relief, we would not get it forgiven, or we would only get part of it forgiven, and that would ultimately just give us more debt, but it would keep our doors open. Worst case scenario, we don't get any relief, and generally we don't have reserves enough to stay open right now, and so that would have been real trouble for both our businesses. In the end, Laura, being a new business and not having a history of payroll, we just split off into separate businesses in November when we opened our new building. She didn't get any help, didn't qualify for any help, because this is a backward-looking qualification system where if you didn't have payroll or you didn't have revenue from the previous year, you weren't, as far as we could find out, we weren't eligible for any of the programs. So I can't imagine what it'd be like. I am able to help support Laura's business at this point, but without somebody else working with you, I don't know what those small businesses did that had that were just startups. So I'd love to actually hear from a business like that to see what they've been able to do. We did get, my side got the PPP on April 29th, and if Congress, which it looks like they are going to change some of the rules, it's likely that we'll have the whole thing forgiven, which is a huge load off our backs. We are moving forward right now. Elisabeth was talking about where her client flow was. Our patient flow right now is at about 60% of what it was pre-pandemic. So relative to the things you're hearing, that's not too bad, but the protocols that we're putting in place to protect our staff and our patients have drastically reduced the amount of people that we can see in a day. So we have lower revenue, and then PPE costs are through the roof for masks and gloves and whatnot. And in some cases, they have tripled, and that was already a large expense for us. So we have lower revenue, higher costs. I hear is not very good for businesses, but so the only way we're going to get through this is by defeating the virus, and whether that be through a vaccine or the virus mutating and petering out, which would be the greatest thing for everybody. Things are not going to get back to normal. So, it's likely we'll be okay for an extended period of time, but not forever at this point. So I really hope there's some progress in the science of all this. Now, that being said, we wear N95 masks, and I've had a full beard my entire life, adult life, sorry. And this has given me a great opportunity to rock a handlebar mustache, which I had to negotiate with my wife, but it turned out okay. So thank you, Rob. I'd be happy to answer anybody's questions as well. You can just call me at the office if you need anything. So.
Okay, thank you so much, Brad and Todd and Elisabeth. I wanted to give you a sampling of a cross-section of our businesses just to see, just for you to hear from them directly on what they're going through. And now multiply that times the hundreds of businesses that are in Kenmore. So pretty sobering. And thank you all three of you for coming on and sharing your thoughts. And best of luck to you. We're rooting for all of you. Let me go to the next screen. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on with Kenmore's revenues. So this graph shows just our revenues only for the street fund and the general fund. The blue line shows what was projected for the pre-pandemic. And you can see we actually had some recessionary assumptions built into our 2020 projection. We thought that we were going to see a decline in some revenues, and we also saw certain revenues starting to slow down a bit. So we'd already built that into our budget. But here's our best guess of what is going to happen with the recession caused by the pandemic. We're going to see another $1 million to $1.5 million drop in our revenue for 2020, and we're projecting that that'll probably be about the same in 2021. And then we're very optimistically assuming that everything gets back to normal in 2022. We don't have enough data to know that. We don't have enough data to know any of these numbers either, but this is our best guess as far as what our revenues are going to do. And I'm sure for many of our businesses in Kenmore, I bet this looks even worse. Okay, here's the same graph, but with a third line. And this red line is our expenditure line. So the two other lines are the same as I showed just a second ago. And this red line shows our expenditures. And you can see pre-pandemic, we had a balanced budget in 2020, 2021. But like I said, our lines are starting to cross in 2022. And in 2022, we thought our revenues were going to be exceeding our expenditures. Well, guess what? The lines are crossing now. Because of the pandemic, we're actually spending more than we're taking in this year. And that's going to eat away our reserves faster. So what do we do about that? How do we handle that? Well, the way we're handling it reminds me of a movie I just recently saw, The Art of Racing in the Rain. Have any of you seen that movie? It's a tearjerker. It's about a Formula One race car driver from Seattle and his golden retriever. And in the following slide, I'm going to show you a conversation that Denny, the race car driver, has with his wife, Eve. So he's from Seattle, so he's used to racing in the rain. And the setting is that she just watched a video of him in a race where it was raining, where the track was wet. And so here's, oops. Sorry, I got to move my little thing here. Okay. So Eve says to Denny, "How come you go through the turns so much faster than the other cars?" Denny says, "Well, most drivers are afraid of the rain because it's an unpredictable element. They're forced to react to it. And if they're reacting, then they're probably too late, so they should be afraid of it. But if you intentionally make the car do something, you don't have to predict. You control the outcome." And Eve said, "So you skid the car before it skids itself." Denny says, "Yeah, when I'm in a race car, I'm the creator of my own destiny. That which you manifest is before you. Create your own conditions, and rain is just rain." So how do we create our own conditions? How do we skid into the turn? Well, we're implementing a few strategies to do that. And we're not perfect at it, and it's not going to be a perfect skid into the turn. But here are some things that we're doing. Number one is years of preparation. So we have city councils that over many years have built up strong reserves or strong fund balances. And because of adopting balanced budgets that build up our reserves, we have about $10 million of unrestricted revenue. Our overall operating budget for the street and general fund is about $14 million. And so $10 million is a healthy fund balance to have. So that's an example of being prepared before you even skid into the turn. Another example of what we're doing to skid into the turn or trying to create our own conditions is we're actually in this situation, we're turning a weakness into a strength. And that is what we call inelastic revenues. So our largest source of revenue is property tax. And because of the way it's collected by state law, it's not likely to fluctuate too much, even in a downturn. The negative side of that is it's not likely to go up much when the economy improves. An example of an elastic revenue is sales tax. And there are cities out there that are much more dependent on sales tax than we are. The cities with the malls and the car dealerships. The Linwoods and the Tuckwillas of the world are really hurting right now. So this is, and most years, especially during the good times, I actually kind of wish we had more sales tax, because then I could do more cool things for my city if I had more sales tax. But because we don't have a lot of sales tax, we've had to keep our budget small and keep it stable, and not be so reliant on elastic revenues like sales tax. Now, we do get sales tax, don't get me wrong, and it is going to go down, but it probably won't go down as drastically as perhaps other cities might see their sales tax go down. Also, it's so important for us to look after each other and keep each other's morale up and connect with each other. And I've seen so many examples of that here in our community, and I've seen so many examples of that right here in my own organization. My coworkers especially are doing a great job of helping each other, staying connected. They have more Zoom meetings than ever before. In fact, we have all staff meetings now once a week via Zoom, whereas before the pandemic, we were having them once a month. Things like that are helping us look after each other. Another thing is our mindset. You can adopt a mindset where you just want to avoid problems or just survive, or you can have a mindset where you can thrive and actually try to achieve goals, even during this time. And that's what our attitude is at Kenmore. We're not just trying to survive or trying to avoid problems. We're still accomplishing city goals. We're still moving forward with a lot of great initiatives. And that's one of the things that's helping us skid into this turn. And last but not least, we need to be clear on our service vision and remind ourselves what that service vision is, which is an attempt to answer this question: why does our organization exist, and what difference does it make in the world? I think if you can clearly answer this question, then you have a clear service vision. And here's our attempt to answer this question. Our organization exists so that we can propel Kenmore upward and create a thriving community where people love where they live. And I think it's so important that we keep that vision alive and front and center, especially during these times. An example of creating a thriving community where we live, we just got recognized for the Vision 2040 Award just late last year. That's an award that's handed out annually by the Puget Sound Regional Council, and they saw fit to recognize the City of Kenmore for our downtown creation efforts. And you probably know this is not the first time the city's won an award for our downtown efforts. few years back, we won the Governor's Smart City Award, also for our downtown efforts. And just about a week or two ago, the Association of Washington Cities notified us that we won their Municipal Achievement Award also for our downtown efforts in the town square and the hangar in particular. So just want to show this as an example of how we continue to create a thriving community where people love where they live. And there's many more examples, including what we're doing with environmental stewardship. The City Council has really taken a great vision and leadership role in this case, and they've put it front and center on our work plan. And here's some examples of things we're doing to improve the environment. Just last year, with Debbie Bent's leadership and Lori Anderson on our team, the City Council adopted the Critical Areas Ordinance, mainly having to do with things like wetland protection and buffers, and the Shoreline Ordinance. Those two ordinances are going to go a long way in protecting our natural habitat and what we call riparian or fish habitat, and making it better for salmon and other wildlife to thrive in their ecosystems here in Kenmore. They've also directed us, the City Council has also directed us to start working on a climate action plan, and we're going to be reporting at the June 22nd City Council meeting on a plan for a climate action plan. So next steps on how to proceed forward with the climate action plan. We've also done a ton of work on riparian habitat restoration, mostly led by volunteer organizations and volunteers in our community, including the Snow King Watershed Council, led by Eric Admin, a Kenmore resident here. It's been wonderful to see this group and others plant hundreds of native plants along our shorelines, replacing invasive species with native species. We're also working on a partnership with Forterra. Forterra did a great thing on the Cedar River. They restored about 17 miles of habitat along the Cedar River. We've asked them to do that on the SAMMAMISH River, and they've gotten a planning grant to start that process, and it'll go from Lake Sammamish all the way to Lake Washington. We've also removed a series of fish barriers throughout our city. So those are culverts that are too small for fish to fit through. And we've put in a bunch of new water quality infrastructure within our city. And here's an example of what we mean by water quality infrastructure. This is called a Forterra, and it doesn't look very interesting, but you see a lot of these on Bothell Way and the new improvements that we did on Bothell Way. But it's an organic way of filtering and cleaning the water before it goes into our lakes and streams. And so you can see the gutter here. So the runoff from the street goes into here, and then it gets it gets filtered through biomaterial here and cleaned before it goes into our system. Another example of water quality in Kenmore is this very bland, boring looking structure on 522 that we installed. Well, let's take a look inside this box. Ooh, what's that? That doesn't look very interesting, or that looks kind of yucky. Actually, these are called cartridges, and they filter the water and clean it of all the yucky stuff before it goes into the stormwater system. And so we have facilities like this throughout the city that do a great job, or at least assist in keeping our stormwater clean and helping our habitat. Let me shift gears now over to capital projects, and I don't have very much time left, so I gotta hurry. But we have kept our capital projects alive and well, including the West Sammamish River Bridge replacement, led by John Vicente and Terry Bielenberg and Janet Quinn and others on the team. They've done a great job. This project is it's been a long haul getting it ready. And as you've heard me talk about the permit delays we've had and the cost going up, but we made it happen. And we actually made it happen with the help of our 46th District delegation, including Representative Javier Valdez, who serves on the House Transportation Committee. He made it possible to transfer money from one account to another that helped with the budget problems we were having with the project. So thank you, Representative Valdez. Mayor Baker mentioned that earlier, and I thought it was worth repeating. One thing I want to highlight about this bridge, this is kind of zeroing in on the design, but we're really excited about a new pedestrian bicycle facility, or what I'm calling a boulevard for peds and bikes. It's going to have an 8-foot wide path for pedestrians and an 8-foot wide path for bicyclists. That's the crosshatch that you see there. That's for cyclists. Right now, the path is about 5 feet wide on that side of the bridge. So it's going to go from about 5 feet to 16 feet. And it's going to have a lookout point. This picture makes it look like it's not centered across the river, but it actually is. You're looking straight down the river from this viewpoint. Here's some other pictures. Here's that viewpoint that I just talked about. It's going to have decorative railing and artwork. Even here on the barrier, we're going to make it decorative. You can even see some art down here in the bridge columns. And here's a bigger, longer picture of it. And here's the lookout point there. Here's some picture of construction. These are the columns here. They're huge. They're massive. And just about every inch of these is going to be going underground. So down here is a picture of one of these big cages being installed to set the base for the bridge columns. And here's a picture of what it looks like here. So really thrilled with how this project is going now that we've got the budget for it, and it's moving quite well and being managed really well by John Vicente and his team. Also, walkways and waterways continues to do really well. Although, I want to share some good news, bad news, good news, bad news, good news with you. What do you want to hear first, the good news or the bad news? The good news is that all of these projects, all 5 of them from this voter-approved bond measure, are on schedule. The bad news is that they all came in over budget. And our projections show most of them coming in significantly over budget. Construction costs have skyrocketed, and we've had other issues. But there's good news. Good news is that my coworkers, my amazing coworkers, have found the money. They found the difference without having to go back to our Kenmore voters. They've been really creative in finding grants and other funding sources to get these projects to balance. And we're mostly balanced. We still need to find a few more dollars, but for the most part, these projects are balanced. But we got some bad news. Even though we found the money, some of that money might drop because of the economy, including impact fees and real estate excise tax, which can only go to capital projects. So we might see a drop in that. But then some good news, and final good news, is that with this economy, we are likely to see lower bids as well. So that's kind of the silver lining, is we might see lower bids. And we actually have been. We just bid out the Juanita Drive project, and it came in under budget, and we did it after the pandemic had started. So we are seeing lower bids. We also saw lower bids on the Simons Road asphalt overlay project as well. So here's what Juanita Drive is going to look like when it's finished. Here's what 68th Avenue is going to look like when it's finished. Here's a picture of our new beach at Logboom Park. It's going to be finished probably in about 2024. So we're going to have some gravel down here, and then we're going to have sand up here. Sandy Beach. We're so excited about that, and we're excited about the canoe and kayak rental building. It's going to go here, and other features of the park. All this is going to be a massive restoration of the shoreline and the habitat there. Pretty cool. And then here's Squires Landing Park. It's at the confluence of Swamp Creek and the SAMMAMISH River. And this is largely a restoration project, habitat restoration, but we're also adding some features like a little plaza here, a new parking lot, access for boats, bridges. It's going to be phenomenal. This is not a walkways and waterways project, but it's an important one because connecting with the water is so important for the residents of our city. We've heard that many times over the years. This is the pad or the place where the boathouse is going to go at Rhododendron Park. You can see the bridge in the distance, and there's the river right there. Here's some pictures of what it's going to look like. GenCap, which is a company owned by Main Street Property Group, happened to be the low bidder on this, and we're really excited to have them on the team. So we did bid it out. We've awarded the bid. They just had their pre-construction meeting yesterday, and we expect this project to be done. Rob McCord, our project manager, feel free to correct me, but I'm thinking by summer of 2021. Feel free to chat in the chat box to correct me on that. And here's a picture of what it might look like when it's completed. So this is going to be an amazing thing for our residents and our community, and it's going to make this sport more accessible to us common folk, if you will. So let me talk a little bit about land development projects. I have 3 examples: the Lodge at St. Edward State Park, the Flyway, and Kenmore Urban. Let me talk about Kenmore Urban first, because I don't have a picture of it, but where the old Caps Club has been, there by the bowling alley, they're going to build about 100 units of multifamily housing and some commercial space as well. It's not a done deal, but they have been in talks and discussions with our permitting folks. The Lodge, we're looking at summer 2021. They continue to move forward. It's going to have 81 rooms and dining and meeting space. And here's the Flyway. Let me talk a little bit about the Flyway, because this is an important final piece of our Kenmore Village puzzle that we started back in 2012. A Main Street Property Group has been such a great partner. They've built all of this new development here at Kenmore Village. They're award-winning, as was mentioned earlier. Just this year, they got the NAIOP Award, which is a leading real estate organization, for Developer of the Year. And the Seaplane Restaurant got the NAIOP Award for Retail Development of the Year. So if we could all be applauding right now, that's what I would hope we would be doing, because it just shows you what a great company Main Street is. And by the way, they were up against other finalists like Vulcan, Holland, Ryan, Seco Group. So like I said, they've just been so great, and they've invested so much into our downtown and truly transformed it. But the Flyway is officially open. It has 27 residential units, also about 5,000 or 6,000 square feet of commercial on the bottom. And I can't say what yet, but I'm pleased to report that they're in serious talks with a couple of really cool retail establishments down there on the first floor of the Flyway. They're also going to add about 50 new parking spaces to the area, to the property, which is going to help a lot. So what does the future hold? Well, there's Hank. He doesn't know. And I don't think I know either. But here's a really sad picture. I mean, this is a beautiful picture, but it's a sad picture because here's what our immediate future does not hold. Little choked up. I didn't think I'd do that. But anyway, we have had to cancel our events, which is really what we're all about. So this has been really hard for us. There's so much that we have been able to keep doing, but there's things like this that we've had to cut. And we know we'll bring them back, but it's been such a hard thing not to be able to do them this year, because it's bringing the community together, like I said, is really what we're all about. But I do want to end on a positive note, and that's with a little bit of a focus on my coworkers. My coworkers are my inspiration, and they strengthen me. I have many coworkers that are out on the front lines keeping things going, including our building inspectors, our maintenance crew, our surface water technicians, our right-of-way inspectors, project managers. They've all been out there braving it, being amongst the germs, keeping city services going, and I'm grateful to them. We've also been able to maintain our permitting operations, and here's a couple of my coworkers in the Development Services Department. This was a picture taken back when it snowed, I think year before last. But here are my coworkers out there shoveling at the hangar. Here we are on Go Red Day, which is celebrating women's health. I just want to give you an example of the real people that I work with, and I'm thankful to them, and they truly strengthen me. Just in closing, I'd just like to read something that my mom sent me just yesterday. She wrote this and sent this out, and here's what she said. She said, "Have you learned as many things as I have these last 3 months? I've learned to more deeply value family, friends, gatherings, human touch, a phone call, TP, abundance, the refuge of my home and the service of others, and the joy of making jam. I've learned to conserve, to love more deeply, to reach out more quickly, and to bear one another's burdens more deeply." That really touched me, and I asked my mom if I could share this, and she was happy to let me do that. But my mom's words give our service vision an even deeper meaning. We create a thriving community where people love where they live. Kenmore has come a long way since we became a city almost 22 years ago, and we still have a long way to go. There's so much yet to do. Our nation also has come a long way over the last 200 years, and our nation still has a long way to go. The idea that is America and all that goes with it is still not fully available to everyone. This problem still runs deep and is systemic. Police incidents tend to be the flashpoint for these issues, but they are a manifestation of a long-term, deep-running tide of exclusion and suffering among people of color and many others. Here in Kenmore, we can do our part to stem this tide, and the City Council has shown leadership and set policies accordingly. I also stand by the men and women of the Kenmore Police Department. They are phenomenal people, and they are great at what they do. Their job is dangerous and very difficult, and I'm grateful to them for holding that thin blue line between civil society and chaos. We also have a long way to go with this pandemic. Only a small fraction of our population has been infected, and a vaccine is still many months away. But I'm so impressed with how both Kenmore residents and my coworkers have come together during these times of stress and uncertainty. Their positivity and kindness have been an example to me and has strengthened me. So let's all skid into this turn as best we can. We're not going to be perfect, but I know that exciting and better times are still ahead. And I very much look forward to those times with the Kenmore community and my amazing team. Let's all prepare Kenmore upward by creating a thriving community where people love where they live. Thank you.